Hello, 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 and welcome. Thanks for coming. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the stream. So, I'll give everyone a minute to get in here, but welcome everyone. Today we're talking about Lesson 5, Conversation 2. And this gets into a little bit about transportation and moving around the city or moving around the town. And so we had our situation. Do you remember what the situation was? Well, you're at your friend's house, your friend is cooking some food, and you start to eat some snacks. And then what happens? Your friend comes over and says, I think those are treats for a cat. Oh my gosh. And our first conversation last week, you had a good personality, you had a good energy, and you said, no big deal, that's okay. And then, because you were feeling good, feeling energetic, you brought your friend on a hike. And then, shoo, your friend fell into a river and then, shoo, went over a waterfall. So that got pretty dramatic, right? And this time, you didn't react very well. You kind of had a bad experience. And, I'm going to die. And we saw what might happen if you meet a friend, or maybe you have a very bad reaction to some food and you go, oh, my tummy, oh, my belly, I have a stomach ache. I feel like an alien is going to jump out of my stomach. Blah! Oh my gosh. And so, because you're feeling so terrible, you feel so sick. Oh God, save me, I'm dying. What do you decide to do? You need to get to the hospital right away. And then we talked about different ways to get there. Well, you could walk there, but that would take some time. And so your friend says, oh, I'll take you to the bus. But a lot of people don't like taking the bus, especially in America. The bus is kind of not so nice, and they're really slow. And so, I'd rather die than taking the bus. And then your friend says, oh, maybe we could take the subway or the MRT. And you say, no, you need to drive me. And so, shoo, 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 you go on your crazy adventure on the road. Shoo, shoo, shoo. But hopefully everything's okay, right? Burp. Oh, actually, after that burp, I feel right as rain. So, kind of a silly, crazy conversation, but something like this might happen. Your friend eats something and feels sick. Oh gosh, my stomach, you need to take me to the hospital right now. And you have to rush, rush, rush. And your friend is screaming and crying and going nuts. So, through this conversation, we learned a bunch of different things. And a lot of it was about preference, liking one thing better than another thing, and comparing those things. What do you like better? What do you want to do? And also just replacing things. Take one thing, replace it with another, using words like instead. Okay? And so all of these ideas come through our homework. And let's just get started with our homework. So, Lesson 5, Conversation 2, Part 2. Here, we're mostly focusing on the phrase like better. I like A better than B. And then we also talked about would rather. And in spoken English, the would gets shortened to a D sound. So I'd rather. So I'd rather is super, super common in American English. So when you're speaking or listening to American English, you should pay attention to the phrase I'd rather. Oh, I'd rather do this. I'd rather do this. You say to your friend, hey, do you want to go get pizza? They might say, I'd rather eat ramen. Okay? So this is a super common way to show a different choice. Okay? So let's just get started and get into our first sentence. 我喜欢炒蛋多于荷包蛋. Okay, so the grammar here was actually pretty easy, and I think everybody got the grammar perfect. So I like scrambled eggs better than fried eggs. So the grammar using like better than, everyone did pretty much perfect. We say I like A better than B. You could also say prefer. I prefer scrambled eggs to fried eggs. Or you could say I prefer scrambled eggs over fried eggs. Both of these are perfectly fine ways to show a preference. Okay? Now, scrambled eggs is 炒蛋. You take the eggs when you're cooking them and you mix it up. This action, that's called scrambling something, to mix it up. So you can use the word scramble for anything you mix up. If you play a game with lots of little letters, you might mix all the letters up. If you're feeling confused, you might scramble the letters up. If you're feeling confused, your brain might be a little bit scrambled. So scrambled means mixed up. So here, I like scrambled eggs. Better than fried eggs. Okay. 荷包蛋. This word in Chinese doesn't have one simple translation into English. 荷包蛋 is an idea, but in English, there are a few different ways to say it. So basic way to say it is fried egg, or here, fried eggs, because we're talking about a preference. A fried egg just means an egg that you fry. You put it in a pan and you fry it. And now, a fried egg could be one of many different kinds. So, what are some of the kinds of fried eggs? If I crack an egg and cook it, but I don't move it, what happens? Well, then the yolk, the yellow part, that's called the yolk, Y-O-L-K, the yolk stays on the top. And what does it look like? It looks like the sun. So we call that sunny side up. Now, I've seen some students wrote a sunny egg. And you might see that on a menu here in Taiwan, but usually in America, people will say sunny side up eggs. Okay? So sunny side up. And so that's one way to have a 荷包蛋. You have the sunny side up. Another way to do it is you crack an egg, cook it on one side, and then what do? You flip it over. And so those eggs are called over eggs. But we don't just call it an over egg. There are three names. If you only cook it a little bit, it's called over easy. That's the kind of egg where you cut into it and goes blah, 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 blah. Maybe a 流沙蛋吗? It like will run out. It's called over easy. You flip it over and cook it a little bit. It's called an over easy egg. And the yolk will flow out. Now, if you cook it a little bit harder and then it's kind of cooked, that's called over medium. Okay? And then if you cook it longer, that's called over hard. So the most common would be over easy, where the yolk will be runny, the runny egg, or over hard, which means the yolk is cooked all the way through. So over easy, over hard. And then in the middle, over medium. Okay? So many different words for fried egg. Okay, let's keep on moving. I don't want to talk about breakfast too much. We'll get hungry. Okay. Next up, 我宁可外食，也不要自己煮。我煮的太难吃了。Ooh, yeah, so bad. Ugh. You don't want my food. I don't want my food either. So, in English, I would say, I would rather eat out than cook for myself. I'm a bad cook. Okay? This is one way to say I would rather. And if we use I would rather, it's suggesting that we might be going out to eat soon. And it's talking about this time. And then if you say, I prefer eating out over cooking for myself. My cooking is terrible. So if we use prefer, it's usually for more general times. Maybe not this time, but in general, I prefer eating out over cooking for myself. So again, with prefer, you can say prefer A to B or prefer A over B. Now, over is the same meaning as to, except over emphasizes it a little more. Over sounds like one is much better. Okay? So over is a little bit stronger. And over is pretty common. Okay? So would rather usually means for this time. Prefer means in general. And then I would rather eat out. So eat out is a verb phrase meaning eat out of your house at a restaurant. Okay? So we just need eat out. And this is tricky to pronounce actually because this T, we don't go eat out. In American English, this T is a stop. We've talked about that before. Eat out. So the T, you stop the sound really quickly. Eat out. I would rather eat out than cook for myself. Okay? Now, I saw a few students write eat outside. Now, eat out means eat at a restaurant. But if you say eat outside, that sounds like you're having a picnic. Maybe you're outside on the grass, under the sky. So outside means outside of a building. It does not mean at a restaurant. So be careful. Eat outside means have a picnic. Eat out means eat at a restaurant. Okay? A few other students also wrote going out to eat. That's perfectly fine. Eat out, going out to eat, both mean going to a restaurant. I prefer going out to eat over eating at home or something like that. Okay? And then the second part, I would rather eat out than cook for myself. You could say cook for yourself. You cook and you give it to yourself. So who are you cooking for? Cooking for myself. If you use the word by myself, I prefer to cook. Look, I don't want to cook by myself. By myself means alone. So the meaning is a little bit different. You can say that, but saying by myself just means me alone. Okay? Or if you're cooking for yourself, that means you're feeding yourself. Okay? And cook for myself, you could take away that for and say, I would rather eat out than cook myself. Okay? And then I saw a few people write cook it myself. But we did not have something before. You didn't say food before, so you can't add an it. So I would rather eat out than cook it for myself. The IT, you're not connecting to any other thing. So we don't put that it in there. Okay? And then the second part, I said, I'm a bad cook. You could also say, my cooking is terrible. Or both of those are okay. Just switch out different words. I'm a terrible cook. My cooking is bad. Something like that. But remember, if you are calling yourself a cook is a person. I saw a few people write cooker. I am a bad cooker. But the word cook can mean a person, so you don't need that ER. So I'm a bad cook. You do not need to say I'm a bad cooker. That's an extra ER you don't need. Okay? You could also say, my cooking is terrible. I saw I cook too bad. I cook too bad. It's not wrong, but it's not a common way to say this. So the grammar is okay, but it feels a little awkward just because it's not a common phrase. It would be better to have the subject be I and the verb is am. I am a bad cook. Or you could have the subject be my cooking and describe it. My cooking is blah, blah, blah. Okay? To describe if you're good or bad at cooking, we don't usually use cook as the verb. I cook too bad. It sounds awkward. You would usually say, I cook pasta, something like that. You cook a thing. Okay? Now, let's keep on moving. Our second sentence is, 比起咸酥鸡，Bob 比较喜欢吃咸水鸡当宵夜。Oh, Bob, maybe he's trying to be a little more healthy. So one thing has less oil than the other. And so people think, oh, this is okay to eat as your late night snack. So I would write this as, Bob likes eating saltwater chicken better than fried chicken for his late night snack. And then 咸水鸡 does not really have a common way to translate to English, so you could say it another way. Bob prefers eating boiled salty chicken to eating Taiwanese fried chicken. Okay, so we have two different foods that are common in Taiwan. But in English, these are not really common things. And so if you went to America to describe these to people, they might not exactly know what you mean. So if you're talking about food that is special for Taiwan, remember you might have to describe it. So, 咸酥鸡, yes, you could translate that directly to what do people write? Salty, crispy chicken is what you could write it as. And maybe on some websites, people translate this as salty, crispy chicken. That takes the Chinese and changes it to English. But if you are speaking in English to native speakers, no one would say salty, crispy chicken. And that makes it a little bit too vague. Like it's not clear what you're talking about. So it's better just to call it fried chicken. So that's generally what we'll call it in Taiwan. I'm going to go eat some fried chicken. And then if you want to describe it to someone who doesn't really know exactly what is this, maybe they see it and they're like, this isn't the same fried chicken as I get at KFC. How is this different? You could say it's Taiwanese fried chicken. So it's a special kind of fried chicken that comes from Taiwan, okay? And then if they want to know more, you could describe it. Say, oh, it's salty and it's crispy and they put some spices on it. It's pretty good. So, but Bob says he, what did I say? Bob likes eating saltwater chicken better. So, 咸水鸡. There isn't really a standard translation for this. There isn't a standard English word for this because this is a food that I don't think exists in America, or if it does, in very small numbers, not many places. And so in English, we don't really have this idea. So you can translate it to saltwater chicken because they use salt water to cook the chicken and it gets cooked and a little bit salty, right? Another way to say it would be boiled salty chicken. They cook it by boiling it in hot water and the chicken is salty. So boiled salty chicken. So Bob likes eating saltwater chicken better than fried chicken for his late night snack. One better than the other. Or Bob prefers eating boiled salty chicken to eating Taiwanese fried chicken. Both of these are comparing one better than the other. Okay? And then 宵夜, 当宵夜. How would you say that in English? I would say as a late night snack or for a late night snack. Okay? Both of these would be okay. So for his late night snack or as a late night snack. Okay? For me, late night snack in my life, this is the most common. Now, there is another word, midnight snack, but I think late night snack might be a little bit more common, okay? Or at least the people that I know will use the words late night snack a little bit more than midnight snack. Now, it should be late night snack because it's very late at night, or midnight snack because it's in the middle of the night, maybe close to 12 o'clock. Now, a few people said night snack. It makes sense, but that's not a common phrase. We'd say late night or midnight, okay? And then I saw a few people use the words supper and dinner. Well, supper and dinner, that doesn't fit here. Supper and dinner are the same thing. Supper is a word that means the exact same thing as dinner. When I was growing up, my mom would say, hey, are you ready for supper? Supper will be ready at 7 o'clock, something like that. Supper and dinner are the same thing. They're both 晚餐. So here, supper and dinner don't work. We want late night snack or midnight snack, okay? And then, like I said before, we're talking about what Bob likes in general. So likes something better than something or prefers something to something. These are ways to show preferences. Would rather is talking about the next choice. Maybe tonight, what would he rather eat? So you could use would rather. Say Bob would rather eat saltwater chicken than fried chicken for his late night snack. But that would mean today or tonight, okay? So it depends what you're trying to say. Are you talking about in general or this time? Okay. Next up is 约会时比起去吃大餐，我更喜欢吃路边摊. Okay, so this is probably true about me. I kind of like eating lots of little things. So you could say, I would rather eat street food than a big meal on a date. Okay. Or you could say, I would rather eat at a street stand than eat a big meal on a date. Now, I think the first one is better. I would rather eat street food than a big meal on a date. So I changed the things from 路边摊 to street food, talking about the food rather than the stand. Why am I doing that? I would rather eat street food than a big meal. This way, we're keeping the action the same. Eat street food, then eat a big meal. And so we have eat something versus eat something, okay? So in English, it's good to try to keep your words to be the same form. If it's a noun here, a noun there. If it's a food here, a food there. If it's a verb here, a verb there, okay? It's good to keep a balance and keep the things similar, okay? If you have verb ing, have verb ing over here, okay? So you could say street food, which means food they sell on the street. You could say from food carts. Food carts, not foot carts, sorry. From food carts. Or you could say at food stands, or at street vendors, or at a street stand. All of these are different ways to say the same thing. Food carts, food stands, street vendors, street stands, street carts, whatever. There are many different ways to say a cart on the side of the road selling food. Okay. One more thing is at the end, I said on a date. So we're talking about a preference, what you want to do, what you would rather do on a date. On a date. So remember, we talked about what a date is versus dating. A date means you and another person get together and go out, maybe in a romantic date, you and a boy or you and a girl. And so we'd say on a date. If you use the phrase when dating, that means the two of you have a relationship. So dating with ing means you're boyfriend and girlfriend, or you're together, okay? So here we want on a date, okay? Because it's one time, one meeting with a person. Okay, so the next unit is about would rather or would rather have. All of these are different ways to show what you prefer, right? Like I said before, I'd rather is super common in day-to-day English. So this is probably the most important out of all of these preferences. Like better, prefer, would rather is the one to practice using the most. So you can use would rather in many different ways, right? And so you could have would rather this than that, would rather have done this than that, all these different things, okay? So first up is 早知道结婚这么麻烦，我宁可单身一辈子. Oh, geez. So maybe your friend is saying this and they're having a bad time. Maybe their husband or their wife is always on the couch eating chips, or maybe sleeping till 11 o'clock every day. Oh, so annoying, right? So your friend is having a bad time. They might say, if I had known getting married was so annoying, I would rather have stayed single forever. Oh my gosh, that's pretty extreme, right? I hope marriage isn't so bad. If I had known getting married was so annoying, I would rather have stayed single forever. Okay. Now, you could also say so complicated or such a hassle. So annoying is an adjective describing something that really bothers you. Oh, it's annoying. Maybe it's not really bad, but it kind of bothers you a little bit pretty often, okay? If you don't want to be so negative, annoying is kind of a negative, you could say complicated. Complicated means there are many things to think about. You have to think about this, that, this, that, this, that. It's complicated. Maybe you want a simple life. And then you could use a noun also. You could say such a hassle. So annoying is an adjective. Such a hassle is a noun. A hassle is something that is difficult to work with, something that's kind of frustrating, maybe annoying, okay? So at the beginning of this, I said, if I had known getting married was so annoying. You could also say, if I had realized. If I had realized getting married was so annoying. So they're similar meanings. Knowing is focusing on just knowing it. Realizing means discovering it. Paching, you have the idea, okay? I also saw students use if I had understood. That's a little bit more deeper, knowing something. And so understand doesn't really fit here as well as know. So if I had known getting married was so annoying, okay? And then I just explained annoying, complicated, a hassle. I also saw a few people write so troublesome. That is not wrong. So I had known getting married was so troublesome. Troublesome fits here, and that's correct. But the word troublesome is not very common in spoken English. It feels a little bit old-fashioned, so people don't often use the word troublesome. It sounds like it might be in a book or something, but day-to-day people don't use troublesome, okay? And then the second part, I would rather have stayed single forever. So we are talking about a regret and a preference. A preference, I wish something happened back then, right? I would rather have stayed single forever. So we're using would rather, but in the past. So we have stayed, okay? And we use have stayed to show that it's in the past in a regret. I saw some people say, I would rather stay single, but that means you are single now and you want to continue staying single. So I would rather stay means you are single and you want to continue. But if we're talking about the past, we need to add have. So the present perfect version of the verb. I would rather have stayed single, okay? And then you can say forever, or all my life, or till my last days. There are many different ways to say forever, okay? And then I would use the word single here to mean you're not married. I saw a few people use unmarried. I would rather have stayed unmarried. But day-to-day life speaking, people don't use the word unmarried very often. Single is much, much, much more common, okay? And next up, keep on moving. We have a question and an answer. So person A says, 你要不要一起订下午茶? Sounds pretty good, but you're not really feeling it, so you say, 我先不要. So, not very rude, kind of polite, and just a nice way to say, no thank you. So, saying no is too direct. It's kind of rude. First, I'll get to the question. Sorry. So the question is, would you like to order afternoon tea together? Would you like to order afternoon tea together? Or with me? Both are okay. And the answer is, I'd rather not. Okay. So the question is, would you like to? You could also say, do you want to? Now, how are they different? We learned before, would you like to is just a bit more polite. Would you like to order afternoon tea together? Okay. And afternoon tea is something that's after lunch and before dinner, right? In the middle, around maybe 3 or 4 o'clock. So this is called afternoon tea. And just like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, do we put the word the on those words? The breakfast, the lunch, the dinner? No, never. Never the breakfast. It's only breakfast, lunch, dinner. So just like that, afternoon tea, we do not put a the. So would you like to order afternoon tea together? And so a few people wrote something for afternoon tea. That would be okay, but you don't need the word something there. Just say afternoon tea. And the answer here, the response, if you want to use the one we had in our lesson, is I'd rather not. And that's one way to say no, thank you. Or so if you say no, that's very direct and a little bit rude. So no. Oh my gosh, why? A polite way to say it would be, oh, no, thank you. And then another way to say no, thank you would be, oh, I'd rather not. So I'd rather not is a way to say no. It's actually a little bit less polite than no thank you. So it's because there's no thank you in there. I'd say no, too direct. I'd rather not is just one way to say I don't want to. And then no thank you, you're saying no, but you're saying thank you for asking me. So I would say no thank you is the most polite. But you can say I'd rather not. Maybe I'm not in the mood. I also saw a student say, I think I'm good. That's a good answer. It doesn't use what we learned in the lesson, but that's fine. I think I'm good, meaning I think I don't need anything. I think I'm good is a pretty common way to say no thanks. Okay? Next up, 女朋友周末想要在家看 Netflix. 我比较想要去电影院看电影. Okay. This is a pretty common one. And oh, your girlfriend, she's feeling kind of lazy, or maybe she feels relaxed at home. She likes the couch. She doesn't want to go to a place with many, many people. So my girlfriend would like to stay home and watch Netflix on the weekend. I'd rather go see a movie at the movie theater. Okay, so there are a few different ways to write this. So if yours is a little different, that's okay. First up, my girlfriend. If you have the word girlfriend, it's one word. If you say girl space friend, that's your friend who is a girl. My girlfriend, a female friend. And if you put it together, then we get girlfriend. So we want it as one word, okay? So she would like to stay home and watch Netflix on the weekend. You can say stay home or stay at home. It's the same meaning. But if it's the same meaning, use the shorter one. Stay home is just as good as stay at home. So you can drop that at and say stay home. Okay? And then we say on the weekend. In American English, we use on for the weekend. We do not say in the weekend. In means like inside of a time, but for whatever reason, we think of the weekend being on the weekend. People in England, they don't use on, they use at the weekend. So that's kind of tricky. Americans say on the weekend. English people say at the weekend. But we don't say in the weekend. And then a few people wrote on weekends with an S. If you have an S, that means every weekend, most weekends. It's a routine. So that would change the meaning. So don't put that S on there unless you mean it's many, many, many weekends. It's every weekend, okay? And then the grammar here, I think everybody got. I'd rather go see a movie at the movie theater. And then the only difference is, what was your action? I'd rather go what? You could say, go see a movie at the movie theater, or simplify it, say, go see a movie, or go to the movie theater. Both are okay. And it's clear that you want to go out of your house to a movie theater. So you don't need to say the whole thing. Okay? So if we use would and rather, we're talking about preference for what we want to do maybe this weekend. Okay? If we want to talk about every weekend, we'd say on weekends with an S, like I said before. And then you could use prefer or likes to, right? My girlfriend prefers staying at home on the weekends. And then I prefer going to see movies on the weekends. So you'd have to change the verbs to having ing if you want to use prefer, okay? Or you could say, my girlfriend likes to stay home, and then I like going to see movies. So you could also change this to like. But I'd say for this, it would be better to use the would rather, because it's probably talking about this coming weekend, okay? Next up, 我希望你上厕所后不要忘记冲马桶，很臭欸。So yucky. So this is so yucky that my tones in my Chinese just went crazy. So sorry about that. So this is kind of a yucky story, but sometimes this happens. Maybe you have a roommate and your roommate forgot to flush the toilet. Ugh, oh my God. Or maybe your mom or your dad forgot to flush the toilet. Oh God, terrible. So you could say, I would rather if you didn't forget to flush the toilet after using it. It stinks. So you're telling someone that you really want them to do it. You'd prefer it, and please just do it. I would rather if you didn't forget to flush the toilet after using it. And then it stinks. You could also say it smells awful. Awful meaning very bad. Or you could say it smells like beep, the SH word. So the SH word means what they forgot to flush, but also you could use that word to talk about anything that smells really bad. Anything that smells really bad, you can say it smells like beep, that S word. There are many four-letter words in English. You probably know what one starts with S. So anything that smells bad, it smells like beep. So get out there and practice. If you walk down the street, oh God, it smells like beep. Or someone makes you dinner, oh, it smells so bad. It smells like beep. Okay? So we use I'd rather if you didn't, meaning I'm asking you, please change what you do, okay? Now, I would rather is using the form we learned here. You could say it other ways too. So you could say, hey, don't forget to flush the toilet. Or you could say, I wish you wouldn't forget to flush the toilet. I would rather, don't forget, or I wish you wouldn't forget. All of these are okay, but using what we learned in the lesson, I would rather if you didn't. And then you could also say, I would rather you remembered to flush the toilet. So I would prefer if you remembered, okay? So you could change it that way too. Now, the verb here is important. It's flushed, F-L-U-S-H. So in Chinese, there's one word, 冲马桶. And 冲 can be used in a few different ways. But here, with a toilet, it's FL, flush. So we flush the toilet, whoosh, and the water goes down. Now, I saw a few people use brush. Brush means you take a brush and clean the toilet. A brush is a long thing with many little hairs on it. You brush the toilet to clean it. You could ask someone to do that, but the meaning is different. And then I saw a few people use the word rush. In Chinese, 冲 maybe means you're rushing somewhere. Go, go, go. But here, it doesn't mean rush. We mean flush. So the water goes down, okay? And then, so if it smells bad, you can say it stinks, it smells awful, it smells like poo, or it is stinky, something like that, okay? Many different ways to say something smells bad. So hopefully this never happens at your house. Ooh, too scary, right? Okay, let's keep going. So move on to Lesson 5, Conversation 2, Part 4. So this is other ways to compare things or to replace one thing. So we have one thing, we replace it with another. What do we use? We use instead of, or if we have an idea, like a action, and you replace it with another idea or action, you can use just the word instead. So instead of a thing, instead of a whole idea, okay? So first up, 我比较想要好好沟通，而不是跟你吵架。This is a good way to think, right? So maybe you and your partner are not having a good time together. Maybe things are going pretty badly. So you can say this, hey, I would rather communicate instead of fighting with you. It's like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to argue. I just want to communicate. Let's talk about it. I would rather communicate instead of fighting with you. Okay. So here I used I would rather. Okay. And then, like we said before, there are many different ways to show the same thing. The key part is instead of. One thing instead of another. One idea instead of another. So here you could say I would rather. You could say I prefer. Or you could say I want to. That would be okay too. Using I would rather is probably the most common. And it makes it clear that there's a preference, okay? I'd rather is more common than I'd prefer. So remember, I'd rather. So I'd rather communicate instead of fighting with you. So we have this action, communicate, and then instead of fighting with you. Now, communicate doesn't need an ing, but fighting does need ing because instead of verb plus ing, instead of fighting with you, okay? The first word, I said communicate, or maybe communicate well. I'd rather communicate well. You want to have a good conversation. And so using communicate is the best choice here because when we're talking about a relationship, the word communicate is very common because communication is an important part of a relationship, okay? And so I would rather communicate instead of fighting with you, okay? You could also say rather than fighting with you, right? Which we learned before, but using the keywords instead of. And I used fighting because fighting is the most common way to express this in English. When people are in a relationship, any kind of bad stuff between them is usually called a fight or they are fighting. So you can say they're arguing. Arguing makes it clear that it's only speaking, but fighting is more common. And fighting can mean a speaking fight, and usually it just is a speaking fight. So arguing or fighting. And so even though they're not punching and punching, even if they're just yelling at each other, I would still call that fighting, okay? So fighting is a little more common than arguing. Now, some students use the word quarrel. I would rather communicate instead of quarrel with you or quarreling with you. Now, quarrel is not a common word. Yes, it is correct. A quarrel means a sort of argument or a fight, but it is not common. It's very old-fashioned. People very rarely use the word quarrel. So quarrel is very rare because it's hard to say. Quarrel, Q-U-A-R-R-E-L, quarrel. It's hard to say, so it's easier to just say fight, okay? So sometimes certain words get more common just because they're easier to say. Quarrel, not common. Arguing and fighting are very similar, but fighting is probably a bit more common. Okay. And then in the sentence, before we have instead of, do not put a comma. You don't need it. So I would rather communicate instead of fighting with you. So when speaking, there's a slight pause, but you don't need to write a comma with this word. Okay. Now, next up, we're talking about a young guy who was in high school and he did really well at school. And he took the SAT test and got a perfect score. Holy moly. And maybe he was a really good guy and worked really hard in high school. And now we get to talk about him. 考虑很久之后，他决定去念哈佛，而不是念斯坦福。Oh my gosh. He's a good student, right? He has two choices that are amazing schools. So he thinks, after thinking for a long time, he decided to go to Harvard instead of Stanford. The simplest way to say 考虑 is thinking about it or thinking about it. Okay? So after thinking for a long time. So he's thinking. So 考虑, we often would just say thinking. That's the most common way to say it. You could also say after long consideration. That's a bit more formal. Consideration means you're thinking about something for a long time. So long consideration, you're thinking of your options. Or after considering his choices for a long time. So considering would be a good word here, but it sounds a bit more formal. But sometimes that's good, okay? I saw a few students use pondering after pondering for a long time. That's not bad. It's correct. You can say pondering, but pondering is a little bit less common. It's not used very often in speech. You might see that in books more often than in speaking. Yeah, people don't really say pondering, but the answer is correct. It works here. So I would say for speaking, thinking about it for a long time, or considering it for a long time, or long consideration, something like that. I also saw for a long thought, but you don't want to use for a thought. We'd say after thinking. You want to focus on the action. He was doing something. He was thinking. So don't say a thought, say thinking. Or consideration, it's okay to use a noun because that's talking about a long time thinking about something. Okay? And then I said he decided to go to Harvard instead of Stanford. Now, day-to-day life, people will usually just use the word go when talking about college or university. Go to Harvard. You could also say study at Harvard. He decided to study at Harvard. So go to Harvard or study at Harvard. Both are okay. We want decided to go. So decided is usually followed with a to verb. Okay, so decided to go, decided to study. But we do not add an ing verb after. So if you said he decided studying, that doesn't really work in this sentence. Okay? Okay. And then, like I said before, we can use instead of. Go to Harvard instead of Stanford. Take one thing, replace it with another. So bye-bye Stanford, he wants Harvard. And you could also use rather than. He decided to go to Harvard rather than Stanford. Both of these are fine. Instead of, rather than, basically the same meaning. Okay? Next up. So maybe you, me, and another friend are playing a game. The other friend gets to choose his teammate. And so you can say this. 他选 Kyle 当他的队友，而不是我。Oh, don't be sad. Just because he chose me doesn't mean he doesn't like you. It's okay. So he chose Kyle as his teammate instead of me. Oh, so sad. Okay? So here remember the verb should be chose. The verb choose, choose, in past tense, we make it into chose. 2 O's becomes 1 O. Choose, chose. We do not put a D on this, so don't say choosed. It's hard to say. We'd say chose, okay? And this is past tense. It already happened, so we want chose, not chooses. Chooses means it's a routine. It happens again and again, okay? So he chose me. You can also say he picked me. He picked me, but it's just picked. Picked and chose mean the same thing. I saw a few people write picks up Kyle as his teammate. Picks up can mean use your hand to grab it and pick it up. So sometimes we'll use picked up for a teammate to join a team, but generally to mean exactly the same as chose, just use picked, not picked up, okay? And then he chose Kyle as his teammate, okay? As his teammate, meaning to become his teammate. So it's best to use the phrase as, because the word as means like to become something, to be something. Chose Kyle as his teammate. And then I use the word teammate. Teammate is one word. You could also use the word partner. Partner means someone who you will work with, but it doesn't always mean you're on a team, okay? But it could, so that one's okay. But we don't mix the two together. We'd say teammate, partner. I saw a few people say team partner, but that's not a common phrase. Choose one or the other. Don't mix them. Teammate or partner, okay? And then in this sentence, remember, no comma. You don't need a comma. He chose Kyle as his teammate instead of me. So me, bye-bye, and chose Kyle. So he chose Kyle instead of me. Oh, so sad. But it's okay. Maybe you still won the game. I'm not that good. Okay. And next up, 我今天什么都不想做，我只想要躺在沙发上滑手机，咻咻咻咻。So maybe you're feeling a little bit lazy and you say, I don't want to do anything today. I just want to play with my phone on the couch instead. Okay, so 2 sentences. Remember, 2 sentences. In Chinese, it's one with a comma in the middle. But in English, these are 2 ideas that are separate. There's no connecting word, so make it into 2 sentences using a period. I don't want to do anything today. Period. Here, if it's a negative sentence, we often say, I don't want to do anything. So negative verb, and then use anything as what you don't want to do. So a few students said, I feel like doing nothing, or I want to do nothing. I want to do nothing. The grammar is okay, but it's not a common way to say something. I want to do nothing. There's kind of, it doesn't really match. I want to do something. Oh, okay, what do you want to do? I want to do nothing. Huh? It's kind of, it doesn't really match. So usually we'd change the want to a negative. I don't want to do blah, blah, blah. What do you not want to do? I don't want to do anything. So that means nothing. So it's better to use a negative verb here. That's kind of tricky to understand, but generally, if we're talking about wanting to do something, if the want is nothing, we would just change it to a negative. I don't want to do anything, okay? Now, I said want. You could also change it to feel. I don't feel like doing anything. That would be totally fine too. Let's focus more on your feelings. I don't feel like doing anything, okay? And then just like I said, feel like doing nothing kind of doesn't match. It's better to use negative with the word anything, okay? And then the second sentence, I just want to play with my phone on the couch instead. So here we're using instead to do the whole sentence. I don't want to do anything today. And so the doing something is what we're trying to get rid of. I just want to play with my phone on the couch instead. So the idea of doing something, throw it out. I just want to play with my phone on the couch instead of doing something. Okay? So a few things here. 滑手机 is hard to translate to English, but the most common thing would be play with my phone or just use my phone. Probably play with my phone. I'm playing with it and you play with something. So remember, don't say play phone, you play with my phone, okay? Kind of like you play with your computer or play a game. You play a game. If it's a game, you can say play baseball, play a game. But if it's a thing, we need the word with. Play with my computer, play with my phone, play with my dog, okay? So play a game, play with a thing, okay? And 滑手机, the most common way to say this in English would be play with my phone. A few people wrote a few other things. Scroll my phone. Scroll is the action of going up or down on the page. So scrolling your phone is more focused on what you're doing on the phone. Maybe you're going, but generally just playing with the phone, we wouldn't say scroll your phone. You could also say browse my phone, but browse feels like you're looking at documents inside of it or looking at certain things in it. But in general, it would be better to use play, okay? Play with my phone. And then I saw a few people say slide my phone. Slide does not really work here. Slide sounds like you take your phone, put it on the table, and go, shoo, you slide it across the table. So these three words, scroll, slide, and browse, they have different meanings than what we're trying to say. So 滑手机, it would be best just to say play with my phone, okay? And keep it just phone. People these days, don't say cell phone, don't say mobile phone. We just say phone, okay? And, okay, one other thing, I said on the couch. In Chinese, it says 沙发, but in America, people will usually use the word couch. Couch and sofa, maybe there's a little bit of a difference if you look in a dictionary, but day-to-day use, people use couch and sofa to mean the same thing. When I'm at my parents' house, I'll say, I'm going to sit on the couch. Couch is more common in American English than the word sofa. Both are okay. They're the same thing, but a lot of times people will say, I'm going to go sit on the couch, okay? And so you could just say on the couch, or a few people said lying on my sofa. That would be okay, meaning you're lying on the sofa, playing with your phone. That would be okay too. And remember, it's lying. L-I-E is the verb, or L-Y-I-N-G. Lying means putting your body down. Laying, now lie and lay, they're almost the same. They're easy to get mixed up. I mix them up too. But lie means your body is down. And then to lay something means you put it down. So I lie down or I lay my book on the table. Lie and lay are almost the same. And even I get them mixed up. Wait, am I supposed to say lay on the sofa or lie on the sofa? So even Americans mix them up all the time. But here we want to use lie on the sofa. Okay. Now, move on to Lesson 5, Conversation 2, Part 5. Our crazy adventure. Everything goes bad. And I don't want to take the bus. I don't want to take the subway. You need to drive me. And crash. And so your poor friend has to get his car fixed. Holy moly, that poor guy. And then you go burp. Oh, suddenly you feel a little bit better. It's okay, right? Hey, I feel right as rain after that burp. That car crash was a blessing in disguise. So, blessing in disguise is a tricky phrase, but I really like it and it's really useful. So, what is a blessing in disguise? A blessing in disguise means something that seems really bad. It looks really bad, but that's just a disguise. So, a disguise, this word means imagine if I put on a mask and I hide who I am. I put on a mask and you think I'm Tsai Ing-wen. I look like vegetable English. And you go, ooh, and you believe that's who it is. So Kyle is wearing a disguise. So I'm hiding who I am. So a disguise is where you hide what you are. So here we have something, a blessing in disguise. A blessing means that God, did something good for you. That's called a blessing. Wow, what a blessing. You can use the word blessing to mean something good. And so this is something really wonderful, really something good. But it's in disguise. So it's really something good, but it's hidden with a mask. And that mask makes it look like it's something really bad. So blessing in disguise is a really useful phrase, and you can use it in a lot of situations. So let's say your friend gets fired. Oh, that seems really bad. He got fired. But your friend finds the perfect job after leaving that bad company. You got fired, that's bad. Oh, you found your perfect job. What a blessing in disguise. Or maybe you are out at a party and your mom and dad call you and say, hey, get home right now. And so you go home early and you go, oh, I'm so sad I had to leave that party. But then there's an earthquake and that building fell down. Holy moly, that's scary, right? So your mom and dad making you go home, it seemed bad, but it was a blessing in disguise. Or let's say your friend is dating a really nice guy. And oh, wow, they're so lovely together. But then they break up and your friend is so sad. Oh my gosh, I'm so sad. But then your friend goes to Australia for travel and then changes her life and everything gets way better. Maybe finds a new boyfriend, a new job, and everything's great. So that breakup, it seemed really bad, but it was a blessing in disguise. Okay. Too much. But I like that phrase. Try to use it. Okay. So for our conversation, so this is part 5. Our first sentence is talking about work. And you need to go, go, go. So you can say, 我今天必须把简报做完. So, I need to get my report done today. Okay? So here we're using the phrase get something done. I need to get my report done today. Or you could also say, I must finish my report today. Both of these are okay. You could also say, I have to. So I need to, I must, I have to. And then I use my report. So don't say the report because we're talking about my report. You are doing it. So I need to get my report done today. It's mine. You could say the, but we don't know which report you're talking about. So it's better to say my. Okay? And then the word report, you could say a few different ways. My report, my presentation, my briefing. It depends what the thing is. A report is telling someone something. A presentation means you're going to stand up and say this, this, this. A briefing means a document that is telling someone a summary of something, telling them a little bit about something bigger. Okay? So report, presentation, briefing, all of these are okay. It depends on what's happening at work. Okay? And then I need to get my report done. I need to finish my report, or I need to be done with my report. All three of these are okay. Just ways to show that you need to finish. Okay? Next up, 我宁可熬夜，也不要开天窗. Oh, geez. Yeah. So what would you rather do? I'd rather stay up all night than show up unprepared. Okay? So here we have 熬夜. So this is what you need to do. I would rather do that. So I'd rather stay up all night than show up unprepared. So you need to get it done. So you're okay staying up all night. So 熬夜 has a few different ways to translate. Stay up all night means you do not sleep. So if you say stay up all night, that means you never sleep. You stay up all night. So that's one way to explain this. You could also say, I'd rather stay up late. Maybe you usually go to bed at midnight, but this time you go to bed at 4 in the morning. Stay up late. So 熬夜 could be either one. Stay up all night, meaning never sleeping. Stay up late, maybe you go to bed, but very, very late. Okay? I'd rather this than that. And 开天窗 is pretty tricky to translate, right? And so we can't say open the sky window. That would be ridiculous, right? So we want to try to translate the main idea, the feeling of it. So I said show up unprepared. So you're going to work and you're not prepared. Show up, meaning arrive somewhere, or arrive at a meeting means show up. And then unprepared means not ready. I'd rather stay up all night than show up unprepared. So that's the way I would say it. You don't want to arrive at work without your report. That would be really bad. Now, you could say it a few other ways that kind of just mean you don't do what you're supposed to do, right? So show up unprepared is a little more specific to this job one. Like you get to work and you don't have your report ready. But if you just make a big mistake, if you do something bad, you could say screw up. Or you could say do nothing or not finish it if we're talking about the report. So I'd rather stay up all night than not finish it, meaning the report. Or I'd rather stay up all night than do nothing. That would mean that you just didn't finish the report. Or I'd rather stay up all night than screw up. Screw up means mess up everything. Do things bad. It's a bad job, okay? Now, there were a few students that wrote, leave it blank. I'd rather stay up all night than leave it blank. Leave it blank is what you might have found in the dictionary. I saw that in there too. But leave it blank doesn't work here. Leave it blank means maybe you have to fill in something. Maybe you have a form that you need to write on, and you just don't put anything in. So you leave it blank. Maybe here you're supposed to write your name. Here you're supposed to write how much money you made. I think I'll leave that one blank so you don't fill it in. So that doesn't really fit here. It's better to say something like show up unprepared or screw up or be in big trouble, stuff like that, okay? And last but not least, our last sentence of the homework. 与其在那边旁观，不如你来帮我查资料吧. So your friend is sitting there while you're complaining about your report and your friend's just sitting there. So you can say, instead of just sitting there, how about you help me look things up? So I'm trying to do work, you're just over there relaxing. Hey, instead of just sitting there, how about you help me look things up? So I changed the words around from the Chinese into something that someone might really say. This is really a common way to speak. Instead of just sitting there. This is a really common phrase. So instead of just sitting there, do something, okay? So you're just sitting there meaning you're relaxing, you're doing nothing. Instead of just sitting there, blah, 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 blah. So this is a very common way to start a sentence. If you're frustrated that someone's not doing anything, okay? Like maybe you're getting ready to go and you say, hey, instead of just sitting there, get ready. Or you're cleaning the house and your friend is sitting, relaxing, watching TV. It's like, hey, instead of just sitting there, how about you wash the windows, okay? So here, instead of just sitting there, how about you help me look things up? So instead of could be at the beginning of the sentence, instead of just sitting there, or you could put it in the middle. How about you help me look things up instead of just sitting there? But for this phrase, it often goes at the beginning because you're frustrated, and that comes first. Instead of just sitting there, blah, 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 blah. Okay? I saw a few people write looking on. Instead of just looking on means they're sitting there and watching something happen. So that's not wrong. It's okay. It's correct. So instead of just looking on, like instead of just watching me, why don't you help me, blah, blah, blah. But this phrase, as I wrote it, instead of just sitting there, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 words together, this is a common phrase. You should try to remember it, okay? How about you help me look things up? How about you, blah, 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 is a suggestion that you want someone to do something. Help me look things up. So, 查资料 is look up information, right? And so, a lot of you wrote collect information, get some info, look up information. All of these are correct. But when we're kind of speaking in general, maybe the person doesn't know exactly what you're talking about yet, you wouldn't use information right away. So I would use things generally at first. So how about you help me look things up? And then the person says, okay, what do you want me to look up? What things should I look up? And because anytime you look something up, it's probably going to be information. So we don't need to use that long word. So look things up is just good. So help me look things up, help me collect information, help me get some info, help me look up information. All of these are okay. But there was one note. How about you help me searching for information? Now, help me search. So after the word help, we just put the verb. You don't want the verb plus ing. How about you help me search for information? That would be okay. But you would not say help me searching for information. Okay? There was one where I saw, would you rather help me look up information than be an onlooker? So would you rather help me than watch me? So that would be one way to ask the question, but it's not showing that you're annoyed. You're just giving them a choice. If you say, would you rather this than this? You're giving someone a choice. But here, we're trying to show that we're frustrated. So it's better to say, instead of just sitting there, meaning stop doing that, how about you help me look things up? So being frustrated, it's better to use instead of here. And then last note, last but not least, very important. Remember your question marks. Most of you only put a period at the end of the sentence. You didn't use a question mark. How about you help me look things up? Anytime it's how about, you end it with a question mark because it's a question, right? Okay, so that brings us to the end of all of our homework questions. So all of this, these are different ways to show preference. And some of them you can mix them up, right? Would rather, like better, prefer, all of those can mix. And then instead is more of a general replace one with the other. So all of these are really useful. And I'd say of these phrases, prefer is a little bit less common. We use it. People use prefer a lot, but I'd rather you should use a lot. Like better is good too. I'd rather, super common. And then instead and instead of all the time. Like use instead and instead of like every day. So instead of just sitting there, you can be practicing your English, right? So I hope you can use some of these phrases to show what you like. Maybe I'll write up a little thing tomorrow and try to get you guys to practice. So in my announcement of this stream, I asked you about transportation. Do you like taking the bus? Do you like taking the subway? So tonight, I'd like you to get on there and try using some of these sentences. Make your own sentences. Translating from Chinese to English, this is a good way to practice your grammar, but you need to practice expressing your own ideas. I don't know how much day-to-day conversation practice you get. I don't know how much English you're speaking. So at least you can try typing and sending messages in our group. Let's talk about what you like. Would you rather this than that? Would you like this than that? Do you prefer this over that? Do you like this better than that? Or you tell me. What about transportation? Maybe tomorrow I'll ask you some other questions. And I want you to respond. Instead of just sitting there, you should be typing in our group and practicing your English, okay? So hopefully you like this story. It was a little bit dramatic, but sometimes you meet people who are like this, and maybe you feel this way. Oh, my stomach. Oh, God, it's too terrible. And so we get into this crazy situation. Now, next week, we'll talk about the third personality. Oh, mitofo, our chill guy, way too relaxed. And so if he eats these treats that are for a cat, how does he react? Does he flip out? Does he go crazy? Or does he just say, oh, whatever? And then after that, what kind of adventure do you go on with your friend? If you're feeling good, you go for a nice hike. You're feeling energetic. If you're feeling bad, oh, you just say, drive, go, go, go. But if you're feeling whatever, I don't know, what kind of reaction do you do? And what kind of an adventure do you go on with your friend? I'll see you next week when we practice that, okay? Now, I'll stick around for a few more minutes. If you'd like to chat with me one-on-one, if you have some time, you guys can search Kyle Moai and you should be able to find me, okay? And you can send me a message and we can chat for a couple minutes. Maybe talk about what kind of transportation do you prefer? Do you like taking a scooter? Do you like riding the bus? What do you think? Okay? And so send me a message. If not, maybe I'll send you a message. Okay? So have a good night, everyone. And I will see you next time. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.